Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, welcome to Winning. I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and I have two guests today that I'm very pumped to have on, Sarah Morrill and Michael Beedie. How are you guys?
I'm doing well.
Thanks for having me.
Good. So I actually just took a course, which I have to admit to you guys, I've taken like a few different customer service courses and stuff, but this was the first kind of intensive course that I took since university, which was a handful of years ago. So I was a little nervous at first, but I absolutely loved it. So it was a course through 321 Growth Academy, which you two are from. So I just wanted to say thank you off the top for being such great facilitators for that, because I had an absolute blast.
Mackenzie, you were a star student.
Thank you.
You got all
I did
your
win
work
Best
done,
in Show.
and you put your work in. Yeah.
That's right. Did all your listeners
And
hear
you
that?
did win Best in Show.
I did win Best Show. I'll just toot my own horn there, which I was like, and I was at the office that day because I work remote. So I was at our office and I came out with this like huge smile on my face, and everybody's like, what happened in that meeting? I'm like, I was awarded. And they were like, good for you. But I feel like that's partly my personality, that I really like give it my all, but also that's part of being a former and current, I guess, entrepreneur, small business person, where I really went into that course thinking I need to get the most out of this that I can. Mm-hmm. So I did put the time in and the effort in because I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
So
this is our courses are built that way. We always say it at the start, but not everyone takes it to heart. But if you get in what you, like if you're putting in the work, then you get out the results, and obviously it works. It just takes a lot of work to do it. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. So I should let our audience know who you guys are, I guess. That would be great. So Sarah spent over 15 years working with big brands, early stage startups, and tech ecosystem organizations. She's been in the trenches leading teams from strategy and planning to getting shit done, which I absolutely love, because a lot of times the shit does not get done. That's a problem. She's worked in advertising agencies, and then she moved to the client side marketing with big brands like WestJet, which is really cool. She's got tons of strengths, which I can tell you because I did learn a lot from her. But product marketing, brand building, lead gen, people, HR, culture, so much. And she is a partner with 321 Growth Academy. And Michael is customer focused. So he brings account management and sales background to the 321 team. He's taken the scenic route, which I love how you put that, your career scenic route here of career paths, and takes pride in his generalist tool belt, providing skills to tackle whatever comes up with a smile on his face, which also is true. And again, Michael is part of 321 and On-Ramp as well, which is, I guess, a side part of 321.
Yeah, we think of them as right? Two divisions. Yeah.
Two divisions. Okay, cool. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about 321 more. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. But first of all, who the heck are you guys? So why don't you, in your own words, instead of me just doing your bios there, why don't we start ladies first? We'll start with Sarah, but just give the listeners an idea of who you are, where you came from. I know you worked with WestJet, different things, and today what you do with 321.
Yeah, so today I'm a partner at 321 Growth Academy, but way back when I started my career, I wanted to be in advertising, and my journey, I don't know, I guess somewhat of a scenic route as well, to use Michael's words. I did advertising. It was a kind of a small boutique agency. I started on the reception desk. I moved into account. I moved into HR briefly, kind of did a terrible foray into HR. And then stayed kind of on the, after leaving agency, client side marketing, went to a couple of big organizations where I hated it. I hated being a cog in the wheel. I hated kind of being like, is what I do day to day impactful to this organization that has thousands and thousands of people working for it? And it didn't feel like the answer was yes. And so when I left WestJet, which is a marketer's dream in Western Canada in a lot of cases, I went into my first tech startup. So I was employee number like 10 at that one. I spent some time there, and then I went into another one where I was employee number 3, very, very early stage, working for entrepreneurs. After a few experiences working in those really early stage tech startups, I started, I ran a program where we actually mentored entrepreneurs. So I got to see this kind of entrepreneur support side of things. And entrepreneurs are my favorite people. They're the most passionate. They are interesting. They care about what they're doing. It's like, you said, it's kind of your style to give it your all when you're in something. That's what most entrepreneurs are like, because you don't succeed at entrepreneurship if you're not fully in it.
No.
And so I love working with entrepreneurs. And so when 321 started about 7 years ago, I helped it get started. And then I went and did that mentorship program. And the opportunity came along to come back and actually lead growing this organization. I was super pumped into it. So now I am the entrepreneur. After years and years of supporting entrepreneurs and being like on small teams in those environments, oh dear, now I am one.
Awesome. Thank you. And Michael?
Much less impressive resume. It's a whole lot of it's like the buffet at a OK resort kind of experience of careers up until this point. This is it's a good thing though. Like I think I was just having a conversation with someone before I hopped on here, and they were saying how in their experience, customer success attracts a lot of people who are genuinely curious and interested in a lot of different things, because it drives them to want to know more and solve problems and also get to know people. And I was like, man, that sounds pretty accurate. And I think that's part of the reason why I took a more meandering path. English degree in university, did a bunch of theater because that was fun. Then also studied Chinese because I needed a language credit my first year, but that was fun. And then I went to Taiwan, lived in Taiwan with my now wife. We met in Halifax and then popped over to Taiwan and then taught English because that was fun. And then came back here to Calgary because that's where she's from, and got a job as an account manager for a consumer packaged goods company. And it was like, okay, this is fun. I'm learning, I'm growing. And then that sort of petered out about 2 years in. And unless I was going to become a sort of a corporate management in Mississauga kind of individual, which didn't sound like me at the time. And I don't know if it's me now. It was sort of a stagnant place. And so I needed some growth and I needed something new. And there's that, curious bit. I think it was the first time in my life where it just wasn't just following what was interesting and following what was fun. I had to make a conscious choice. And luckily planets aligned for a role at 321 opening up and them taking a chance on me that my varied skill sets, we'll call it a resume version of what's the truth. Varied skill sets could come together in a way that could add value, and I think that it's been absolutely energizing. It's all the things that I was looking for and more sometimes, whether I like it or not, Sarah. But it's been very fantastic to work with 321 and work with entrepreneurs, work with people who are energized on what they're doing, whatever they're doing, to learn about their companies, to find out how I can help them, how 321 can help them, and constantly engage with things that are new every day and get better at the things that I know how to do. So it's been an accelerated last 2 years with 321 and tons of fun.
A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudayspa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card. That is awesome. And we're going to talk a lot today about knowing what you don't know, which kind of sounds silly. But I think we've talked about 321. I talked about the course. You guys have both mentioned it. So first of all, maybe something people don't know. Do you want to give us a rundown of what is 321 and why would people come to you guys?
Sure. So 321 Growth Academy is an organization that does sales and marketing training and education for entrepreneurs and their teams and people who want to work in sales and marketing. So we've got 2 divisions. We've got On-Ramp, which is our talent upskilling side. So that's folks who want to pivot into careers in tech and working for entrepreneurs, and they need some skills to get those entry-level jobs. And then the other side of the business, which is our 321 side, is where we focus on entrepreneurs. And we work with entrepreneurs from the very kind of early commercialization, pre-revenue, all the way through to companies who are firmly in scaling, or companies that have been around for a while and are maybe seeing some growth issues. And our whole thing is kind of that old saying, teach a man to fish and he'll feed himself forever versus giving him a fish. We don't do the work for you. We're not going to give you the answers either. We teach people how to go and figure out the strategies that are going to work for them. Because in this growth business, and when no matter what kind of business you're building, whether it's like a traditional brick and mortar or you've got some new innovative product that you're bringing to market, the methodologies can be applied, but there's no one easy answer. You have to go and figure that answer out for yourself. So we teach people how to go figure it out, how to go figure out their growth strategies.
Yeah. And thank you. And okay, I'll just say this right now. This is not an advertisement because we're not advertising 321, but because I just did the course, I just want to talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
I did lean sales, and being an entrepreneur for over 10 years, but I also work for a tech company. And so for us, the tech company I work for is just past 5 years old. But in the course, there was literally people just starting out. Mm-hmm. And then there was people like me that their business had been around for a little while. And for me, I still found so much value in it. It's not that I knew all the answers. I still had to sit down and really go through and say, okay, this is what we're doing, but is that what we should be doing?
Yeah, it's really interesting because you're never done this work. I was working with a cohort this morning of fairly early stage, but very deep tech businesses, they're going to sell to huge organizations. And it's, I told them the story that we look at our fundamentals to growth at least twice a year. We reassess those for our own company. This stuff's never done. And it kind of goes in, vein of what we're going to talk about today and kind of knowing what you don't know and validation. We constantly have to be checking our biases and our assumptions as we grow, not just when we start.
No,
kind of forever.
Yeah.
You might
I think
I got this dialed. My business is really growing. I know exactly what I'm doing. And then a global pandemic happens and you need to refigure everything out. Or maybe something happens and you don't know what's causing it, but your growth is plateaued or going down. And you got to go back to the basics to figure that out.
Exactly.
From a CS,
go ahead, Michael.
It's interesting to deal with the different companies, and like you said, some of them are starting out, and it's a lot for them. There's a lot to do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
figuring out all of the things. I didn't even know I had to do that, but I definitely have to do that kind of thing. So there's a mountain of stuff for them to do, but it's for the established companies. Arguably, it's even more important for them to revisit those fundamentals, regardless of whether you know them or not, is reestablish those, validate those, because you have so much more impact, or another way to put it, so much more to lose. You're already in revenue. You already are spending money. You're not building something from the ground up that is like, if it doesn't work out, that's okay, because you don't have overhead and all this stuff, right? So the impact, the importance is just as high, if not higher, for those companies that are coming in with more knowledge, more confidence, more traction. That's a good thing, that there's more to work with, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. I can tell you many, many examples of those that came in and were like, oh my goodness, okay, we need to rework some stuff, which is great. That's fantastic, because if they didn't figure that out for 6 months, 12 months or worse, then it's like, where would they be? So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's so true. I know for me, Sarah, you mentioned that C word, the pandemic, COVID, but I had a business for about 7 years before COVID hit. And the first 3 years we're learning everything, right? You just think you got it, and then you got to tweak something, and then you got to change something. But honestly, from year 3 to 7, I didn't make many changes. Mm-hmm. I kind of was like, things are going well. We just keep doing all this stuff. And then COVID hit, and I had a 2 women's clothing stores that sold business and event wear. Well, there was no events and nobody was going to work. So I literally had to do all this again. Mm-hmm. Like, what will people buy? How much money will they spend? Mm-hmm. Right? Some people are living on CERB. Some people are working like normal. They're just working from home. And I had to sit down and go through literally my entire business.
Yeah. And reassess based on a major reassess. The number, like many businesses went under, right, with that hit. Yep. And the ones that were able to be agile and pivot and be flexible, lots of them survived. Not all of them, regardless of the ability to be flexible. But that's like, COVID is this wonderful example that we're all experienced with and understand really clearly. But things change, other market pressures, other more nuanced things change. And we don't necessarily notice it until things really start to suffer. And that's one of those things, like if you're not kind of on top of what's going on in your business and how growth is working, you might not notice when growth stops working so well or when it slows down until it's like, oh no, we got to really tear things apart and reassess.
Yeah, because you might notice it. Okay, like today was slow, this week was slow, this month was slow, but all of a sudden it's this quarter was slow.
Yeah.
We've been slow since January, right? Like all of a sudden it's compounded.
And you're going, okay, I got to lay people off. I got it. So you're making decisions based on those kind of lagging indicators. What if you had leading indicators? What are the things that you do that work that feed your growth? And if you could start to see those suffer before you get to that bottom line revenue number, and you can react sooner.
Yeah, 100%. So how the heck do you recognize or know what you don't know?
My first thing, my first piece of advice is to write down what you know. Don't go, entrepreneurs have this tolerance to risk, right? Entrepreneurs are willing to take leaps without all the information. We don't want to stop people from doing that. We need entrepreneurs in the world. We need people who have that high tolerance to risk and are ready to jump in without all the information. But if you're making decisions based on your gut all the time, and you're not clear on those decisions that you're making for your business and for yourself, eventually those gut decisions add up. Right? Those things that you're making based on your own expertise, your own assumptions, your own biases. And the only way to kind of suss out that is to start tracking stuff. Write it down. Okay, I think our customer is going to be this because. And if you're just like, I know it's going to be, it's up here, it's in my head, that's going to be harder to test against as you go. It's okay to go, that's an assumption, and I'm making the decision based on what I know. But as you start to learn, if you haven't captured that, it's really hard to kind of address. The other thing I like to say is you've got to talk to people. You've got to write it down and you've got to talk to people. And you have to talk to people that aren't just your friends and family.
Yes. How about your clients?
Yeah.
So many
Your
people
clients,
never ask their clients any
prospects.
questions.
Yes. Like you've got to talk to people. Even if you have even like your B2C and you're selling socks on Instagram, how could you get some feedback from your actual customers who bought your socks on Instagram?
Yeah.
Right? Like how can we actually talk to people, especially when we start out, or especially if we're starting to see some issues? And that's where, we always go when we talk about validation and knowing what you don't know, you got to write it down, and it's okay to make decisions based on assumptions, but you've got to talk to people, and you've got to start capturing that data.
Yeah, it shocks me how many people don't talk to their clients.
Yeah. And the other thing, when you talk to your clients, do not allow yourself to sell. That's one of the harder things. You get a chance to have a conversation with a customer. It's really hard to not upsell them if they're an existing customer, or to just be like, oh, so you're happy and you love us. That's great. Let's just talk about how much you love us. No, have questions ready. Don't sell. Take selling off the table. The other thing is, if you're not selling, people are going to be more willing to talk to you too. I promise I'm not selling you anything. Please have a conversation with me. Stick to it if you're going to make that promise. Yeah.
No, that's very true.
It's amazing how many people don't talk to their customers.
No, it's shocking. I talk to business people all the time. I'm like, do you survey, or do you ever do maybe not a focus group per se, but just bring people in to have it? And they're like, no, why would I do that? I'm like, they're the customers. And they go, how do you know what they want or or don't like?
Oh, I know. I've been doing this for this many years. Like, do you know, or do you assume?
That's right. You think you know.
Yeah, you think you know. And I think that's part of how do you know what you don't know? You've got to be really honest with yourself. I actually, it triggered for me with this topic when Michael was talking about kind of his career pivot when he came to 321. He knew what he didn't know. And that helped him get onboarded to what we did really quickly. Really quickly, because he was like, no, I know a lot of stuff. I've got a lot of transferable skills. We wouldn't have hired him. But he was really clear. I don't know about this.
Yeah.
And then he could go and learn that versus making some assumptions about how we might do things and why we might do things.
I think that there's a balance. This goes for anything, but especially the entrepreneurial space. There's a balance between having the confidence and the decisiveness in order to make choices, to build a company, to, these are big things. Also, if you don't have that big, healthy double ice cream scoop of humility the entire time, then you're going to get yourself into some sticky situations because, despite the fact that you know what you know, to recognize, to use your words, right? How do you recognize what you don't know? You can't. You really can't in most situations. It's not possible. That's why, in a lot of circles and therapy circles and stuff like that, they're called blind spots. They're blind, so you cannot see them. So, but the thing is that acknowledging you have blind spots is the only way that you're going to ever see them, as opposed to being like, well, no, I don't see anything, so probably safe.
Therefore, they don't exist. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
A safe business decision because I see no issues. That sounds great if you've done the work to be able to say that, right? Mm-hmm. So to know what you don't know is, I think, there's steps to do that, but the first step is always expect that there is something you don't know, which I don't know who needs to hear that. Maybe some listeners are like, I got it. Well, then it's you. I'm talking to you.
and that's it's you. You're the one.
It's you person.
Yeah. We work with a lot of technical founders, people who are really, really, really freaking smart people who know their subject so well. And they know things that I could never dream of understanding and knowing. But you're still only one voice, right? So especially when it's a technical or a scientific type founder, I go, that data is not valid because you are one voice. So I push people kind of on, like Michael talking about the blind spot thing. It's like you're one voice. You might know a lot. You might be a really, really smart person, but no matter what, you're still only one person. And so without kind of statistically relevant or whatever it is, data, you're one voice.
I think too, this also goes, we say talk to your clients, but it also goes to talk to your team or your employees, right? And leaning on them because they're going to know things that you don't know, right? And that's part of why you have a team, because I can't do everything, right? 100%. Like I can't do the marketing and the accounting and the prospecting and everything. So that's why you have a team. So everyone has their area that they really excel at. And you're still probably going to have blind spots, but it really will mitigate those.
Yeah, I think there's two key spots there that I, first of all, fully agree. And the now two key spots in order to make that happen, that sometimes are easier said than done, is having a culture of honesty. We call it, I'm sure you've heard this already coming through our course, but our culture of radical candor that we have is based on the book, of course, but speaking directly, speaking in a helpful way, speaking kindly, but like this is the case, right? And getting communicative with your team, whether it's up or down, is huge. And then the second thing is making the space, the literal time in which that happens, in which once you've established that culture in which it can happen in a fast-moving startup environment, especially, sometimes it's like, I don't have time to ask you, what do we think about this amorphous thing that we may or may not know? We got stuff to do, right? So I think that those two aspects are something that you are constantly required to work on if you want to benefit from that sort of like hive mind, team brain thing that is such an asset.
Yeah, for sure. So true. And I think, as I kind of said, I was on the path of like, everything's great and just going along. And I think it's really easy to fall into that spot. I'll call it a trap, because probably not everything was great. And I, in my head was like, everything's fantastic. And it took a pandemic for me to stop and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should look at other things, right? So we should be just cognitive of this before something bad happens. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think there's something defensive about making sure you understand your blind spots. There's something defensive about understanding your data and tracking what you know and what you don't know. And it's okay not to know things, but be honest with yourself about what you don't know. Yeah, for sure. And be honest with your team. Yeah. Right? Because I think a lot of times as leaders, people are like, in their head think, well, I have to know everything and I have to be able to lead my team. So I just have to, pretend that I know what's happening. And it's okay to say, I'm not sure what we're doing about this, or I'm not sure how we're going to get there, but we're going to figure it out. Yeah, we're going to figure it out. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Totally. What steps do you need to take to find out what you don't know? Yeah, and I think kind of started this with tracking. So you need a plan. This is a thing that you do. This is not going to be a magical thing that kind of happens. You need to capture what you're working on. And so in our world, we're talking about growth. So we're primarily talking about sales and marketing strategies and how you get there. So you got to start somewhere and you got to write it down and you track. So what metrics do you have? What metrics do you wish you had? Can you go get those ones that you wish you had? What are the kind of minimum, I always think of it as minimum viable metrics. Okay, well, we have this. We track revenue. We track, visits to the website, but we don't track anything else. It's like, well, what could tell you about what happens in there if you could go and get that data? And I mentioned this before too. It's like, write down your assumptions. Write down when you're making a decision based on an assumption, put it down somewhere, tell the team, do whatever it takes, but then have a plan in place to go and validate against what you don't know and what you need to go figure out. There's a real plan. It's work. You got to do some work. It's work. My goal when I came in to your course was to have a sales strategy written down.
Yeah.
And that sounds so silly.
But that was the goal for most of the cohort, right?
Yes, because we all were doing things. We had a strategy, we had a plan, but it wasn't anywhere. It was in our heads and just us discussing it. So I always say, like, the hit by a bus theory or something happens to me that's leading this team.
What's going to happen? Yeah.
What do they do?
Well, and how do you get more efficient as a team if we don't know what we're doing and we don't know what's working?
Yes.
And it's always about how are you becoming more effective and more efficient in growth? When we're building things and we're coming up with new strategies, like WestJet has a plan. They know how to fill their planes, right? They know how to do that. They know which levers to go and pull when they're light on their whatever route. When you're building a business and it's something new, even if it's something that's been around, like a more traditional business model, it's new business. You don't know what those levers are yet. And if you're just kind of throwing stuff out there and not tracking anything, you're never going to get good at anything.
No, because you'll never know. You've got nothing to measure it by.
Yeah. And so when we're talking about like knowing what you don't know and validating and having a plan to track, you've got to start somewhere. And that's, you know, in your cohort, for instance, because we had companies that were really, really early and we had really mature companies. But the goal was the same because it was like what their outcome was going to be was going to be very different. But getting to that written down sales process in that instance was the same reason. We need something that can scale as we grow. We need something that we can communicate across the rest of the team so everybody knows what's going on. If the CEO was selling and the CEO gets hit by a bus, like in your example, what do we do?
Yeah. And I found too, even when I was writing it down, I'm like, wait a minute, we do kind of this exact same thing at two different stages. Why do we do that? Wait a minute, why do we do this? How come we've never done this? And all of a sudden it was like light bulb moments were happening all the time because it was a tangible thing to look at, not just we do it because that's what we do.
And it's interesting because like sometimes there's pushback with, early kind of fast growth companies. I don't have time to write it down, Sarah. I'm making sales call. I've got meetings. I don't have time to talk to people. We've got leads. Why do I need to write this down? And it's a hard argument. And so you've got to kind of carve out the time to go, and what happens when those leads stop coming in? You're going to have no idea how to start them up again. What happens when those sales calls start, none of them close? Oh, great. You're having lots of conversations, but where's your revenue number? You're not going to understand what was I saying in those sales calls and why didn't they close? So it's this often this conversation takes a big, like, well, what if you're wrong? And what if it doesn't work? And planning and writing it down and tracking your processes seems like something that's not important when you're busy building a business. But we know, and Mackenzie can tell you now, you don't have to listen to us. It's not a pitch for 3, 2, 1. But we've seen it, right? You've got to capture stuff. You've got to write it down. Even if it's just at a high level to start. That's better than zero.
Yeah, and it's hard to track or make changes or tweaks to something that isn't written somewhere.
It's not tangible. Yeah.
How do you, right? Yeah. Well, we should try this. And then you make a change without it being, and then how do you track it?
Yeah. And
right? How do you know if it worked or not?
It's surprising how many even kind of startups or early companies that have been around for years still have a lot of processes not written down. So it's not like if you're listening to this and you're like, this seems like a lot of work and they just said get to work and it's like you're not alone. There's other businesses that are in this spot where they don't have processes captured. But I promise if you start to capture processes, you're going to get more efficient. Like I feel pretty confident making that promise.
I think it's good advice to take. Mm-hmm. Just having just done it.
Yeah.
Because now I can measure. And I'm like, if we want to change something, I know, okay, we're changing this. Now, how does it measure back to what we used to do? Mm-hmm. Right? How does that develop or change in different ages or stages of your business? Like, how does it change from early days to you've been around for a few years?
Yeah. And I think like when you're early, be comfortable with making assumptions. Like nobody has all the data when they're starting out. And again, I think, I mentioned this is something about entrepreneurs and their risk tolerance. You're okay with that level of risk. Okay, if you're wrong, you don't have 20 people on payroll who are going to lose their jobs if you're wrong, right? This is you and a co-founder, or you and a couple of people. So that kind of level of assumption when you're getting going, sure, you don't have time, you're starting. But you want to start introducing some real data as soon as you can. And that's a variable answer. For some businesses, it should be before they do anything. For some businesses, it's when they have a minimum viable product that they can show people, so people actually get it and now they can get feedback, right? So it's gonna vary quite a bit early how much data you need and how much you feel. It's almost personal. How much assumptions, how much kind of only your data do you feel comfortable moving forward with? But as you grow and as you start to scale, and if you need to go fast because maybe you're raising, or you need to go fast because you need to make more money to pay yourself and pay your team, this is how you'll start to go fast. So you can imagine, 321, we've been around for 7 years. Our team is kind of 4 to 6 people, variable with part-time contractors and such. We capture a lot of data. We teach this stuff, so we capture a lot of data. But I would love more data on our lead and our sources and where everybody's coming from and who's connected to who. We get a lot of referrals in. I would love more data in that space. Is it ever going to be a huge priority to go into a big project to capture more and more and to clean up our CRM and spend a bunch of time doing a bunch of backward looking, trying to figure out where everybody came from? Probably not, right? We have enough, there's enough to see a pattern to make some decisions. When you look at like a really large organization with a couple hundred or more people, they're going to have really detailed data. WestJet knows everything about you, right? So when you look at the huge companies, they have tons of data. They can tell you lots of buying behavior by demographic and personas and what's working and what's not working, how much revenue equated to this very specific and small marketing campaign are they attributing to that, and at what percentage of that revenue is being attributed elsewhere. It's complex, it's robust. They have entire departments doing that. But when you're a small business and you're building towards something bigger, the level of data that you have is going to change. And you want to minimize those assumptions as you grow. So get comfortable making some assumptions when you start, and be honest with them, maybe put them on your wall, whatever it takes. And as you grow, start going, oh, now I know that to be true because I've had 100 people buy my product and say this about it. So now I can double down on that marketing message. It works.
Is it okay to base decisions on your assumptions?
Okay, sure. Yeah, generally speaking.
That's a loaded question.
Like, okay, yeah. Mackenzie knows this. There's a joke, right? In 3, 2, 1, the answer is it depends. Most questions, because there is no silver bullet when it comes to growth. There's no quick answer, and yeah, it depends. I've seen businesses crash and burn because the entrepreneur assumed they were right about a lot of things, or when they went to go and raise money, a tough VC poked a lot of holes in their assumption, and it was embarrassing for the entrepreneur to be in that position. So yeah, it's okay to make decisions based on assumptions, but you've got to be, the thing I ask if somebody wants to move forward on assumptions is, what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong and the impact on your business isn't catastrophic? Maybe it's worth making that decision based on only no data. What if you're wrong is catastrophic? Don't go there. Get some data, right?
Yeah.
And maybe catastrophic is relative. Maybe that's not the best term, right? Like it.
Yeah, exactly. Because
how bad will it be if you're wrong?
Yeah. Well, and I always say too, data is king.
Mm-hmm.
Facts are facts.
Yeah.
So the more time you can make a decision based on facts, you're going to be farther ahead.
100%.
Yeah. When you're starting out though, I think you make a lot of decisions based on assumptions because, as we said, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. And you don't have time necessarily either, or you've just got to start, right? You need something to show somebody before you can start going and getting some data. And that's okay. So the short answer to your question, Mackenzie, is yes, it's okay.
Okay, good. But if you have data,
Better.
use those facts.
Much better.
Better, exactly. Why is validating? You've talked lots about validating, and I'm going to tell you right now, when I was in the validating, answering my questions, that I found to be the hardest part, because I was like, how do we actually know this to be true? How are we going to find this out? So why is validating your information important?
Mm-hmm. Michael, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I think that it is the closest you can get.
I'll just say, because Michael's doing a bunch of validation work right now for our business.
I know he is, because he asked me some questions.
That's right. I'm chatting with lots of people getting all that validation goodness. So, I think that validating is so important because it provides that confidence that you're looking for. That it reduces that echo chamber effect that Sarah was speaking about before. Going to like a friend or a family member or someone who's best buds with 321 and being like, hey, is the work that 321 that they've created, is it good? Oh, thank you. That's not.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, of course it is. Correct. We do great work. But it's the piece of, is this resonating with people who owe you nothing? Is this resonating with people who target audience, your ICP, your ideal customer profile? Are these the people that would benefit from what you're working on, and are they getting what they need out of it? And that allows you to make decisions on what you do with much greater confidence before the stakes are much higher. Or it's too late, or whatever the case may be. And so it's super, super valuable. And honestly, it doesn't take that much work to get so much value from it. A couple 15-minute phone calls can answer some pretty important questions for you before you hit the big red button and start the wheels in motion. And so. And then it comes right back to what Sarah said there. It's like, and what if you're wrong? And what if you're wrong is, well, so what? Well, then, okay, then maybe it's not worth those phone calls. Maybe it's not worth that validation. But if, you're putting something massive together, if you're putting in, building a new product, this is like the inherent purpose behind the entire department of product, right? Building something that the customer wants, and then going backwards from there, as opposed to how it used to be done, in the previous decades.
Built this shiny thing. Who wants it?
Who wants?
Yeah, push it on people.
We just built it. Who wants it? Nobody. Please, got to be somebody. So that's it. I think it's the same thing for no matter what you're building, even if it's a service. Mm-hmm. And I think also, just to add on to this, especially for early stage companies, especially those like pre-revenue or just post-revenue, there's always this hesitation around talking to customers outside of like a deal flow, outside of, this is the sales opportunity. You're just getting your name out there. And so there's consideration of your reputation and burning up those leads, which is both valid points. However, you're just figuring things out still. Once again, there's that humility piece coming back in. And so don't overlook that straightforward option of just calling up someone that fits your ICP profile, your ideal customer profile. And as Sarah said right at the top of this conversation, flag immediately that you're not selling them anything. And don't, and truly don't, which is, I think can be hard for some entrepreneurs, because if they say all the right things, they truly confirm that they're the ICP that you're looking for, then it's true love. You want them to buy your thing, but you're not going to, that's not what you said you do. And so staying true to that and validating on that call, and note that they just have that unique perspective that you're looking for. Most people are pretty helpful. They want to help you out, especially if they're like, hey, this sounds cool. And you're like, great, we'll talk later if you want to talk about that, because I'm not selling.
Yeah.
It's,
I'll tell you later, but right now.
Exactly. these conversations can be super quick, super casual, but extremely, extremely valuable.
So to validate, talk to your current clients or prospective clients. Are there other ways to validate, or is that it?
Yeah, I always say talk to people first. And that's got to be a mix of people, right? It's got to be people who are your existing customers, maybe who are your desirable customers, maybe it's a new market, whatever it might be. If you can't get face-to-face with people, do Zoom. If you can't do Zoom, get on the phone. A lot of people will do surveys, totally valuable, especially on the B2C side, but not as valuable as actually having a conversation face-to-face. Mackenzie, I think you mentioned focus groups earlier. Totally. Again, they can be expensive to kind of run a focus group with a professional. They're kind of a thing where you got to organize it and do a whole thing. Depending on the market, definitely valuable. I think the thing that's interesting, it's like Michael's doing validation right now for us and had a validation call with Mackenzie. You decide how much you do. So Michael's had, let's say, hypothetically 5 conversations. If he's hearing the same 5 things from everybody he's talking to, and everybody he's talking to is a well-qualified customer for us, stop having conversations. If he talks to 5 people and all 5 people say 5 different things, okay, Michael, you're probably going to have to talk to 20 people. And then look for the pattern too. So make sure you're kind of using your time wisely and being ready to make quick decisions as soon as you start to see a pattern. If you say you want to talk to 20 people, but you see a pattern after 5, stop, get to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, take your learnings and proceed from there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. This is awesome. I think I am making an assumption here, but I will validate it later by talking to some business friends. But I don't think many people are doing this.
No, because you would think we would be asked more often. You know what I mean? Like,
I think you just think you know, and then you just proceed down that path. But validating is essential.
Yeah, and I think, like Michael touched on it with the psychology of it, is it's hard for us when we have a business and it's our baby to not sell, to kind of be vulnerable, to be humble about it. And entrepreneurs are confident people. We are risk takers and we're ready to jump in and do things. I'm just here to tell you from working with, I don't know, what are we at? Like well over 500 companies now, that you'll go faster and you'll build a stronger business if you do that work.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I was just going to ask what's the most important lesson you could share, but maybe that's what it is.
I think that
it's
is
validating.
It's validating.
Yeah.
It's check yourself before you wreck yourself. I don't know.
It's true though. It's true because I think we do it a lot, especially at the beginning of your business. You do it more, right? Because you are assuming more. You don't have the data. But as things get going, I think it's you do what you think you should do.
Yeah. So it's test.
That's not always good.
Test, validate, talk to people, make good decisions based on good information.
Yeah. All of this is possible through knowing that you're not the business gift to the world, and knowing that you are fallible and I just have. I mean, I'm no model. I'm not an entrepreneur. I've never built a business, but I know that this is true for the entrepreneurial community and anyone else, that you don't have to be like non-confident, like I'm very confident on the things I'm confident at, I know what I'm good at. And also the confidence in knowing what you're not good at is also confidence.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it has served me so well in my life to, no matter what I'm doing, just to be like, I don't know how that works. Can you tell me? And they're like, sure. And I'm like, sweet. I know how that works now. And it's just that easy. It's not like, you don't have to, I got it. I know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. And the amount of information and skills that I've been able to acquire just by being authentic, but also being like, I'm just totally not good at this. And can you help? And people are happy to help. People are nice people most of the time. And if they're not, then don't talk to those people. They're not going to help you anyway.
Yeah.
I like that. That should be the last line. People are nice people most of the time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I think too, I think I usually at the end ask one thing you wish you had known, but I think same thing here. It's like, I don't know why, but I think of the Taylor Swift song when she sings, "I'm the problem, it's me."
Hi.
Right? And it's like, like a lot of times we just get in our own road because you're right, Michael, your ego gets in the way, I think. And you don't maybe recognize, oh, wait, maybe it's because I don't know this. Or maybe I'm making this decision because I think I know, but I don't actually know, right? And it's just recognizing that.
It's just recognizing it as a starting place.
Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just saying, it's just recognizing it as a starting place. Know what you don't know.
Recognize.
Yeah. There. In this, like, I don't know, especially in Calgary, we have a very supportive community. There's a great community of entrepreneurs and support structures. And I'm sure that's a lot of different places. And there's lots of encouragement and energy, and people would be happy to help. But that's only possible if you allow yourself to receive any of that good stuff. So
that's right.
I mean, there's another piece, like entrepreneurs are competitive individuals. And so there's a competitive one where, like there's an imposter syndrome, there's self-doubt, or perhaps overconfidence. And so
we're not going to dissect this.
That's a whole episode on its own. I actually did an imposter syndrome episode.
Go listen to your imposter syndrome.
You need to go back. Yeah. Chad Brown, find his episode.
We all got it. Yeah. But acknowledging that and how it comes up, acknowledging your ego and how it comes up for you, I think will be very important for your success. Is my, what's it called? Like a unsolicited piece of wisdom from someone who has nothing to show for.
Mackenzie asked you for it.
I asked it, so it's solicited.
My very solicited wisdom.
I think too, entrepreneurs and small business owners, we fall into a trap of I should know everything, and if I don't know it, they either go two ways. They pretend that they know it, or they get somebody else to help them.
Let's kill fake it till you make it. Don't fake it. Just ask for help.
Exactly. Pay somebody to do it if you don't know how.
Yeah.
Get somebody on your team to do it if you're large enough to have a team, right? There's so many ways to do it. Don't fake it.
Don't fake it. Ask for help. Yeah.
That's right. Because you're good. And admit, just be like, don't know. I have no clue how to do that. I have no idea what this is, how we do it, but we're going to figure it out.
Exactly.
And then you make a strategy from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for being on. Like, this was so fun. It's been 50 minutes and it's like we're done and it feels like we just started.
Yeah, it flew by. That was really fun. Thanks for having us, Mackenzie.
It did. You're welcome. Where can people find you? 321 specifically, because you guys are, like I said, this is not a paid advertisement.
But we'll take it.
You'll take it. No, but it was I did the lean sales course. It was amazing. And even as someone that's been in business for 20 plus years, I learned a lot in the course. So I really am giving kudos to the course for sure.
We appreciate that feedback for sure. People can find us at 321growthacademy.com. We do a lot of different types of offerings. And if you follow us on social at 321growth is our handle on most channels. We post anytime we're doing any kind of give content or seminars that are sometimes even free. We're happy to have anybody join us for those.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. And for everyone listening, check out 321 and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Kenzie.
Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Killshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.